Howdy folks, and welcome to the video for the American Tier 10 Premium Submarine, the Gato. I do not even recall why I bought a Gato. I do not know why I own a Gato. I am not a huge submarine player, and this was a very expensive steel ship. My reasons for purchasing it are lost in the mists of time. The only thing I can figure is it's during that phase when I was playing the I-56 a lot, and I got seduced. I remember when the Gato came out, people were either lambasting it as the death of the game or praising it as the new next best thing. And of course, as is often the case with World of Warships and life in general, it turned out to be neither of those things. It is a good submarine, and it is different, which I guess is one of the points of premium ships. It has a unique configuration of torpedoes, and what defines this ship is the non-homing torpedoes, which at the time was almost unique. Most submarines focused pretty heavily on Wargaming's new fancy gimmick that they were so proud of with the homing torpedoes, but this ship does not. It does have homing torpedoes. They're fairly bad, though they do have one or two advantages, which is that they go 93 knots, but they have the I-56 problem where they only go out to 6 kilometers, which was bad before they did the range nerf, but now it's truly terrible, like to the point where they probably really ought to do something about it because, as you know, submarine torpedoes massively reduce their damage, like 90% inside of 3 kilometers, which means practically speaking, you only have between 3 and 6 kilometers to use those torpedoes. So essentially, they're very rarely going to be your choice, which means that all the emphasis is put on these 16.5 kilometer torpedoes, 69 knots, which is pretty good. And most importantly, if you spec into it, 22,500 damage apiece, which is like Shimakaze levels of destruction. However, you only get a reload every 45 seconds, and that's only if you fully spec into torpedo reload, which I have. And every 45 seconds, you're only getting 5 torpedoes. Now, depending on how you look at it, if you're the one playing against a Gato, that may seem like a lot of torpedoes, but it's really not. Like if you think about if a destroyer got, especially at tier 10, got only 5 torpedoes every 45 seconds, that would not be very good. Which means that if you're playing the Gato, you really need to use all the torpedoes, and almost half of them, 40% of them, are in the back of the ship, which means inevitably you wind up doing this slightly goofy thing that I'm doing right now, which I like to call the spin to win. I used to play many moons ago. I was never very good at League of Legends, but during my brief League of Legends phase, I played Garen, which is this hero that has this move that it's not actually called spin to win, but that's what everybody calls it, where he just swings his swords around in a violent circle. Anyway, that's what you wind up doing in the Gato, is just picking a spot in the water, either underwater or above water, if you think that you will not be spotted. And you just spin around and launch torpedoes, mostly at battleships, and hope you hit some of them, which you often do, especially because of the 16.5 kilometer range. And you don't need to hit that many to have some battle impact. I mean, I hit 2 torpedoes and I did 42,000 damage. They're not deep water torpedoes, so if you happen to plunk a cruiser or a destroyer, they're in a world of hurt as well. The Gato has a lot of advantages. It has a 5.8 kilometer detection concealment, and it goes 36 knots on the surface. It only goes 18 knots underwater, I believe, but it goes 36 knots on the surface or at periscope depth. So you really can play this as almost like a weird destroyer. You can do a lot of spotting in the Gato. I'm going to get some spotting damage this game. I talked about it in, I think it was in the Surcouf video, but the fact that submarines launch their torpedoes from the front, and also in this case from the rear, makes them less effective, in my opinion, as spotting torpedo boats, because you can't pick a range. That's the basic reason. You're always getting closer or further from the enemy, especially in this weird thing because you're constantly spinning in these goofy circles. I don't hate the Gato. I think it's pretty effective. I didn't play a ton of Gato because once I understood what you were supposed to do, it just didn't seem all that terribly fun to me. Like spinning in a circle is kind of goofy, but if you don't, then you're massively nerfing your potential. It's just kind of a weird way to play a ship, any ship. It's not bad exactly, and if you enjoy it, I'm not trying to harsh your mellow. I don't find myself pulling the Gato out very much. I don't play Submarine a ton, period. And if I was going to play Submarine these days, I'd probably play the Surcouf. It's more flexible and also just more fun. This is kind of like a one-trick pony. I guess I should talk about all the ancillary features. It does have a bunch of other gimmicks and toys. It's got a single deck gun that's secondary, meaning you don't have manual control over it. And that's about all we're going to say about that. It does get submarine surveillance. It does get hydrophone. It does get that skill that I don't even remember and I never seem to use that increases your rate at ascending and descending temporarily. That's a bit of a nothing burger. It's got pretty good hit points. Not nearly as good as the Surcouf, but it does all right. But I mean, essentially, this is, like I said, a one-trick pony. You spin in place and you launch 16.5 kilometer, 22,500 damage torpedoes, and you hope you hit some. Of course, if the game supports it, if the game state switches, you can get closer to folks. You had to have a 5.8 concealment. So you can get pretty close and then launch these torpedoes. There's even room occasionally for using the acoustic torpedoes. I'm not saying they're useless. If you get a full rack of them into a submarine, into a battleship, if you can get to exactly like 5 to 5.5 kilometers range and you're underwater and someone else is spotting for you, then they could be a good choice. Because even if the battleship knows you're there, I mean, that's the thing, though. If they know you're there, they're going to outmaneuver the acoustic homing torpedoes. So that's a tough sell. I've kind of mostly had my battle impact largely at this point. I mean, I'm going to have a few more. The red team made some good moves, but then they made a bit of a critical error, which is they just gave us the B cap, which means we're just collecting points from it the entire game. Whatever that destroyer is over there, the Tromp, who went and capped that. I mean, he's kind of the star of the show, weirdly enough. I'm going to just keep launching torpedoes and spinning in place, but I don't think I'm going to hit any of them. And the thing is, 5 torpedoes, again, every 45 seconds, it's not bad for a submarine, but really, realistically, especially at these ranges, it's just not enough torpedoes. You want to kind of do area denial, so no matter how a battleship navigates, they're going to face some torpedoes, and you just can't do that with this volume of torpedoes. You're just not launching enough torpedoes at this distance. So you kind of have to choose what your level of risk is when you're playing the Gato. You can be less effective and just. So I got away with it at the beginning of the game because the red team clumped up, and so I just kind of launched torpedoes at the target-rich environment that they were providing me and hoped I would hit somebody. I wasn't even paying all that much attention to exactly which ship I was aiming for. Yeah, so now we're in a cyclone, which is a problem for both teams, but it's actually more of a problem for the red team, and that's just because we're already 415 points ahead. Which means they need to catch us and find us. Yeah, what you're seeing here is this weird dynamic where radar, as powerful it is as powerful as it is, doesn't detect submarines as soon as they go underwater, which is, yeah. So that's a thing in this game. Hugely underrated power that submarines have to just dodge radar. That's one of the reasons why the Surcouf is so good, right? As opposed to a destroyer with smoke, Like smoke is incredibly powerful, but it doesn't do anything to radar. In fact, it just makes you blind. But going underwater does break radar. I launched so many torpedoes at that Venezia. But again, I mean, you know, didn't really expect to hit them. And see, here's the thing. Like, I'm switching to the acoustic homing torpedoes because I have this dream that maybe I'll get close enough to this Minotaur, but it's just so hard. Like, 6 kilometers is just laughably short. I think they should either change the way that minimum range works, or at the very least, they should like make this maybe like 8 kilometers range. And I actually don't know exactly how he dodges the torpedoes. I guess he DCP'd my sonar and then he just turned. so I guess I do know how he did it. Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I'm playing the Gato here, it basically becomes an unkillable, mediocre destroyer with some hard-hitting torpedoes if you get lucky enough to get hit by them. There's a more aggressive way to play the Gato, but it's also just a lot more dangerous, and we didn't need it in this game. I mean, that's the thing. I was kind of partially, as I mentioned before, I play more conservatively because I'm trying to adapt it to this series, and I don't want to just die. At this point, I feel like these ships in my flank are kiting away from me, and there's not much I can do. So I decide I'm going to be useful, and I'm going to go sink that obviously AFK Valparaiso. I think what happened there, usually when you see something like this, it means that they disconnected in the middle of the match because World of Warships allows ships to just keep moving in the same direction at the same speed they had when the ship disconnected, when the player disconnected. Although I think after some amount of time, and I forget how long it is, the ship slows to a halt and just literally sits in place, which is lame. But you know, I guess what else can they do? I've always kind of advocated for giving them like maybe the co-op AI or something, as opposed to having them just sit in place. But I can see the pros and cons. I'm very confused here at the moment, and it's because I've completely forgotten that we're in a cyclone. I'm like, where the heck is the Valparaiso? I'm thinking, like, is he like doing some kind of long game where he's trying to trick me and he's on the other side of this island? Like, what kind of play is that? And then I remembered, oh, you big dummy. It's a cyclone. That's why you can't see him, because you're more than 8 kilometers away. Anyway, I don't know if this is the most useful use of, the ship and my time. Definitely the gearing doesn't need to be following me. That's for sure. He should be probably spotting. But I mean, I get it. I understand why he's not. He probably felt somewhat the same way. The problem with submarines, I mean, there's a lot of problems with submarines, but one of the problems with submarines in terms of playing them is when people are focused on you and they're willing to just give up space, you become almost useless. Like, it's pretty easy to take a submarine out of the game by essentially just running away from them. Like, I don't have any tools to chase anybody down. And even the Gato, which is substantially faster than some other submarines, it's not fast enough to catch most ships. Some ships it is slowly, but only if you stay above water, which you generally don't want to do. So this is kind of cheesy, admittedly, but I figured I'd get the game over, which I did. Victory for our side. So yeah, I mean, I think the Gato is okay. I definitely don't think it's worth paying steel for it. There's just way better steel ships, but if you happen to own it, for some reason you end up with it, it's an interesting submarine to try. It's better than some and not as good as others, like most ships in the game. That'll do it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next video.